Hi guys, it's Educator here, and in this video I'm going to be looking at revision questions under MTH112. If this is your first time for information, I'm going to hit the subscription button so I don't miss videos that I'm going to be dropping subsequently. Alright, so let's dive into the revision video. For question 1, we have the following best defined statistics. Now, one thing I should take note about MTH112, and that's the uniqueness about MTH112. The chances of you coming across these questions word for word is a little bit lesser compared to other courses. This is because MTH112 department has a technique of paraphrasing questions. So understand the question, know the answers, because it can be paraphrased, right? So you don't get confused when you get to the exam. Right, so which of the following best defined statistics? Statistics is a science of collecting, organizing, presenting, analyzing, and interpreting data. Right, question 2, which of the following is not one of the major stages of statistical data handling? Which of the following is not one of the stages? Alright, so for this question, drop the answer in the comment section. Now, one thing I take note of is that you'll be seeing a lot of questions that you want to ask yourself, excuse me, this MTH112, believe me, this MTH112, especially questions that will be treated in the next 10-20 questions. Question 3. The first stage in the statistical data handling process is collection. Of course, the first thing you need to do is to collect your data. Alright, question 4. The process of arranging raw data into a meaningful logical form is known as organization. Question 5. Which stage of statistics involves the use of charts, graphs, and tables to the presentation part? Okay. So now the process of extracting useful information from collected data is known as analysis. Of course, that is where you now analyze, you extract useful information. This statistics is primarily concerned with, of course, organizing, visualizing, and presenting data. That is your descriptive statistics. Inferential statistics involves drawing conclusions. But what inferential conclusion? So it's drawing conclusion about a population from sample data. Statistics basically is more like, I would say, it's a scientific process. Okay, it's a scientific process, and we have the descriptive and we also have the inferential. Inferential is basically the conclusion drawn from the data that you have studied. Alright. Question 9. The entire set of individuals or objects under investigation is known as population. The entire set is under scope or under investigation. A subset selected from the population for statistical investigation is known as sample. Okay, so sample is a subset that is selected from the population. If you want to do statistics of people in Delta, maybe suffering from malaria, you will not call them Delta students out and start asking. You just pick, say maybe 10 from each department, or that is known as a sample. Sample is different from population, because of that. Right, moving on. A numerical measure describing a population is known as a parameter. Parameter is a numerical measure describing a population. A numerical measure describing a sample is called a statistic. So when you describe a population parameter, when you describe a sample, statistics. Just take note of that. Which of the following symbols commonly represent a population mean? Population mean, it is this symbol. Please take note, you can mistake it for this symbol. These are questions that you will most likely come across, questions that are very, very tricky. So when some of you get mean, you just go and pick E. Please take note of option C. Which of the following commonly represents a sample mean? The answer sample mean is it here. Remember, we started by saying population is different from sample. So always read your question. Is it population you are talking about, or is it sample you are talking about? These two things you must take note of them. Alright, 15. The complete enumeration of all numbers of a population is known as census. A study involving only a representative portion of the population is known as the sample survey. Sample survey. The sampling frame is best described as a comprehensive list of eligible units in a population. The individual non-overlapping elements of a population are called as sampling units. These terms, get familiarized with them for your exams. A characteristic that can take different values among individuals is called as variable. Different variable. The opposite of variable is constant. Okay. Which of the following is a quantitative variable? That means it cannot be numbered. Quantitative is something that can be numbered, it can be counted. But quantitative, you can't really quantify it. Alright, it's the quality, just as the name implies, quantitative is quality. Now if you look at height can be measured. Right? So we can have the height of maybe 2.5 meter, 3.5 meter, and stuff like that. You get, but eye color, can we see we have something like 1.5 eye color? No. Alright, so eye color falls under qualitative. Okay, you should know the difference between quantitative and qualitative variables. Okay, the statement. Now, qualitative variables are variables that describe categories or attributes. I already talked about that. Describe qualities, describe the characteristics of individuals. Quantitative variables are variables that can be expressed numerically. Okay, I already explained that can be expressed numerically. Short phrase is a discrete variable. This one is it's a very common question. Discrete variable. You should know that we have what is called the discrete variable and we have the continuous variable. So discrete variable we have number of temperature. Number of children. So this means that a discrete variable cannot be expressed as can only be expressed as whole number. So number of children can only be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 100. You cannot say there are 2.5 children or there are 3.5 children. Discrete. But you see continuous. Continuous can be 1.1, 2.2, 3 point anything can be expressed as decimal. Right? So looking at it, a continuous variable can generally take any value within a given interval. I can say any value within a given interval. Which of the following is an example of a continuous variable? Of course, we have the height of the student. Okay, number of students can only be a number. Number of cars can only be a number. Number of books can only be a number. But you see, height can be 3.6 meter, 2.6 meter. Again, so this is that things that you should take note of. Alright, which of the following is an example of a discrete variable? We have number of patients. So you should know the difference between discrete variable, you should know the difference between continuous variable. Now what we MTH112 department to do, we will just change this option. So we can put number of chairs. The whole number of chairs here. In the same question, we just changed it. It's the same question. Okay, so they will not necessarily give you distance travel, body temperature, number of patient, height. So just remove that number of patients and put number of something else. You will not go and say, hey, the question is not coming out right now. It's the same question. So if you understand the question, no matter how you twist it, you still understand that is the question we're talking about. Right, so moving on, gender is an example of qualitative variable. Qualitative, okay? Qualitative variable. Alright, moving on, which of the following is not a quantitative variable? We have marital status, age, quantified, weight, quantified, income, quantified, but marital status cannot. Alright, numerical data that can be counted and generally classified as discrete. They can be counted, okay? Known as discrete. They are always expressed as whole number. Counted. Numerical measurement that I can assume values within an interval and as continuous variables. You can see the same question but different format. An arrangement of raw data in ascending or descending order is called array. Alright, the difference between the largest and smallest observation is called the range. Okay, range. Storage row is normally used to determine the number of class intervals. Storage row, the statement of storage row is a very formula. That's a funny formula. Log, that's a very formula. But before I think there's a question that has to do with that. So, please know what this formula is. That's very important. Alright, so this is for the formula. Okay, see already. Formula key is equal to 1 plus 3.322 log 10. Log n is 10 is known as the storage row. The thickness. And this question can be twisted to tell you storage row formula is dash option A, k plus 1. No, it is 3.322. You can go there and you see 3.233, 3.333 is equal to 3.3, right? In storage row, n represents what? The total number of observation. That's what n represents, total number of observation. The class width of the frequency distribution is approximately obtained by dividing the range by the number of classes. Okay. The midpoint of the class interval is known as the class mark. That's the midpoint. Then you get the class interval divided. The midpoint is always the class mark. Right. The class mark is calculated as the lower limit plus the upper limit divided by 2. Remember, it is the midpoint half divided by 2. The relative frequency is obtained by dividing the class frequency by the total frequency. That's how you get the relative frequency. The class frequency divided by the total frequency. Okay, percentage frequency is obtained by multiplying the relative frequency by 100. Right, 100. Cumulative frequency represents the running total of frequencies. So we'll just add all the frequencies together. That is known as the cumulative frequency. The running total. Which of the following is particularly useful for showing the cumulative frequencies of a distribution? Of course, you have the OD curve. It is used. The histogram is primarily used to represent continuous data. Which graphical presentation is particularly suitable for categorical data? We have the bar chart. The pie chart is mainly used to show parts of a whole. Okay, that's why we use pie charts. We have something like this, we have something like this, part of the whole. Okay. Which of the following is not a measure of central tendency? Range is not a measure of central tendency. We have been media mode. Right. The arithmetic mean is obtained by dividing the sum of observations by the number of observations. Okay. So 48, for group data, the arithmetic mean is commonly calculated using the summation of the frequency divided by the summation of frequency. The summation of the frequency times the values itself, the individual observation values divided by the summation of the frequency. So the frequency and the values and their frequency, you multiply them, you add them together, and then divide by the total frequency. This take note, you definitely see good data. Don't say you must, you definitely come across it for your exam. If not going to be written in table, you just assume and use your head. So you see something like this, it will tell you x, for example, 2, 3, 4. Let's say they want to ask you a group data question. You now see f, that's frequency, and you see f, 1, 3, and 4. So you now use your brain to what form a table, right? You know that 2 is for 1, 3 is for 3, and 4 is for 2. You will never see it as table. Because you will never see your group data as table. Okay? Alright, 49. Now the median is the value that divides an ordered database into two parts, median half to part. Okay? The median corresponds to the 50th percentile, half 50th